Okay, you know that feeling when you check your bank account and instead of instantly closing the app in sheer panic, you actually smile? Well, today we're unpacking the exact mathematical and psychological threshold that permanently alters your brain's relationship with money. And honestly, it's a completely fascinating story that goes against pretty much everything we are traditionally taught about personal finance. So let's just dive right in. What is the actual exact number that changes your financial life forever? Most financial gurus out there will confidently tell you that you need this massive six-figure salary, or you've got to hit that mythical $1 million mark to finally feel wealthy and secure. They make it sound like this impossible mountain to climb for the average person. But the data reveals something totally different. The turning point, that precise barrier separating the true wealth builders from those perpetually trapped in the daily grind, is honestly so much smaller than you might think. That highly specific magic number, it's $20,000. Now, I know you might be thinking, really? 20 grand? That's it? But yes, $20,000 is the crucial foundation that transitions you from simply surviving to effortlessly building wealth. It is literally the exact threshold where the rules of the money game just completely flip. It's this invisible barrier that once crossed changes not just your bank balance, but your entire life trajectory. Think about it like this. Picture the journey of building wealth like pushing a massive, heavy boulder up a ridiculously steep hill. If you've ever started from zero, you know getting it moving is just agonizing. You're sweating, you're tracking every single penny, and you're constantly questioning if it's even possible to get ahead. Everything before the $20,000 mark feels like you are relentlessly pushing uphill against gravity. But once you finally hit the crest at 20K, well, that boulder starts rolling down the other side. Gravity actually starts working in your favor, and momentum just takes over. And the science behind why that boulder suddenly feels so much lighter is deeply rooted in your psychology. See, the difference isn't just in your bank account. Before hitting this number, your brain is operating in pure survival mode. Basically, every single decision you make is filtered through fear and scarcity. You might take a terrible job just because you need cash right now, or stay in a toxic situation because leaving feels way too risky. But after you cross that 20K line, your brain unlocks a growth mode. You stop asking, how do I survive until next Friday? And you start asking, how can I proactively grow this money and seek out new opportunities? Let's actually look at the hard data backing this up, because the numbers here are absolutely striking. Vanguard research reveals a fascinating story about our psychological well-being. Their data shows that having a mere $2,000 buffer, which, let's be real, is less than what a lot of people spend on a vacation or a fancy new laptop, actually boosts your overall financial well-being by an incredible 21%. But then, when you push that to a solid 3 to 6 month emergency fund, landing right around that $20,000 mark, you get an additional massive 13% boost. The data clearly proves that even a small buffer changes your mindset, but the 20K mark completely solidifies it. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. You've now created enough breathing room for your brain to start thinking about wealth building instead of just wealth preservation. When you aren't completely consumed by the anxiety of an unexpected car repair or a sudden rent hike, your mental bandwidth expands. Those events go from being total financial catastrophes to just minor annoyances. You suddenly have the cognitive space to evaluate new investments, maybe chip in on a friend's business, and take calculated risks, rather than just frantically dodging the next financial emergency. And just watch how the math accelerates beautifully alongside this psychology. Let's say you're saving $1,000 a month with an 8% return. Getting to your very first $20,000 takes about 19 months of really hard work, discipline, and sacrifice. It's a grind, for sure. But think about that second leg. Your next 20K only takes 17 months. You're doing the exact same work, saving the exact same amount, but you've shaved off 2 whole months because your money is now helping you pull the weight. Fast forward to a $400,000 portfolio, and it takes just 5 months to generate that exact same $20,000. It is the absolute magic of the compound interest engine kicking into high gear. To put that compounding power into a super concrete, everyday perspective, consider the number 1,600. By the time you have $20,000 invested and returning an average of 8% annually, you have roughly $1,600 flowing into your account automatically over the course of a year. I mean, that's a free vacation, or several months of utility bills that you didn't even have to clock in for. You didn't have to deal with a boss or sit in rush hour traffic. It's money that showed up simply because your existing money was working brilliantly on your behalf. It's literally the beginning of true passive income. But getting there requires something pretty profound. Accumulating this sum requires an immense identity shift.
To save 20 grand from scratch, unless you're making a truly ridiculous salary, you had to develop the iron discipline to track every single dollar. You had to say no to shiny objects and weekend splurges. You had to practice delayed gratification over and over again. You essentially proved to yourself that you control your money rather than letting it control you. And as our source points out, that isn't just a financial skill. That is a vital, life-altering skill that changes who you fundamentally are as a person. And because of that identity shift, your entire approach to budgeting basically flips upside down. Think about it. When you're broke, you waste agonizing mental energy on micro decisions. The small stuff. You're standing in the grocery aisle stressing over a generic cereal versus name brand, or whether you can afford that $3 coffee or the organic bananas. But once you establish this $20,000 foundation, you realize those micro decisions are largely irrelevant to your big picture wealth. You stop sweating the small stuff and you start focusing strategically on the macro decisions, your housing costs, whether to buy a $30,000 car, your core investment strategy. Those are the big choices that can actually swing your net worth by tens of thousands of dollars. Speaking of major life decisions, this financial foundation fundamentally transforms your career too. This brings us to a concept I absolutely love: walking away money. This is the savings that provides the psychological strength and financial buffer to negotiate or even completely walk away from a toxic job without a drop of fear. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're essentially a hostage to your employer. But when you have 20 grand sitting there, you completely alter the power dynamic between you and your boss. And that leads directly into what we call the confidence loop. Because you aren't trapped by the desperate need for the very next paycheck, you naturally stop fearing the consequences of speaking up. You become more assertive in meetings, you push back on unreasonable demands, and guess what happens when you carry yourself with that kind of quiet strength? People notice. You start getting better assignments, which naturally attracts promotions, and ultimately, you earn more money. It's almost like having a secret superpower at work. You don't even have to use the walking away money. Just knowing it's there completely upgrades your entire professional demeanor. But here is the critical warning, and it's something I see trip up so many hardworking people. It's the $20,000 trap. The most common mistake people make is reaching this massive milestone, feeling that immense psychological relief we just talked about, and then immediately blowing it on a shiny new car as a reward for all their hard work. It's an absolute tragedy, really. You trade the seed that could literally compound into generational wealth for a fleeting sense of luxury and a depreciating asset just sitting in your driveway. Just how bad is that trap? Well, let's look at this staggering figure, $400,000. The source reveals that between monthly car payments, insurance, routine maintenance, and gas, the average person drops roughly $600 to $800 a month just on transportation. If you stretch that out over a 40-year period, you are vaporizing up to $400,000 just to get from point A to point B, all while people are sitting around complaining that they just can't afford to save for their future or invest in the market. It hits right on the nose with that old saying, the car payment might make you feel wealthy, but it's actually keeping you poor. Taking $30,000 and putting it into a brand new car actively destroys your wealth because the second you drive it off the dealership lot, it loses about 20% of its value immediately. It's literally evaporating money. Whereas if you kept that exact same money invested in the market, looking through the lens of opportunity cost, it could grow to over $200,000 in 20 years. The person in the older, reliable car is quietly building an empire. Meanwhile, the person in the brand new luxury car, they're just stressing about next month's payment. So it leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question. Will you trade tomorrow's freedom for today's shiny object? As you cross this life-altering threshold of $20,000, you really have to look closely at opportunity cost. You have to ask yourself if looking rich right now to impress random people in traffic is truly worth sacrificing the compounding engine of your future freedom. Having $20,000 isn't just about the money, it gives you options. And options are the ultimate wealth. It's the difference between merely reacting to life and powerfully designing it. Start building that foundation today. I promise you, your future self will absolutely thank you for it.